So I'm starting you out with the imagery that I worked with. First of all, I met the bishop. Well, I didn't first of all meet the bishop, but I heard about him first. So this is my process starts with gathering information about this person, and not just the bishop's, like, what does he look like, what are his measurements, but what kind of human is he, what are the stories about him. Bring me everything that you have, old pictures, him as a kid, tell me your stories, do you have any video, all that stuff. And then I just put that in the back of my brain and let it ferment a bit. And this is when I first met the bishop. I'm sneaking around him, taking pictures, getting an idea of dimensions and just how he moves through the world. After this gathering process, which went on for a while, and thank you Linda and Noreen and Myra for giving me these materials and calling, visiting the studio to get some sense of this man. Here's how it starts. So I had a couple of ideas of how I thought to portray him, and I would say that at first, the bishop is the age he is now, and I thought, this guy, he's so quiet, he's so calm, it's going to be a very still image. And I came back with these are the first ideas in little maquettes. This is me just trying to find his face. So I'm just first responding, like, what are the characteristics? This is one of my best sources of material was this Christmas homily, because it's a video. So I could watch him moving, which was super important. And you can't believe even a person of interest in the media, so well loved as the bishop is, we always have pictures of people's faces, and sculpture obviously is three-dimensional. So how do you get the back of the head? I mean, how does his ear look? I mean, what's the relationship of head over body? What's that? Where's the balance sit and stuff like that? So this was super helpful for me, and I took a bunch of stills from this. But then we're showing the bishop a little bit younger, so kind of in the crux of the main part of his career and his activity here in Wichita. And he was a younger man, obviously, so we're taking all that he is and then trying to age him back 20 years. So what reads as him? And it's not necessarily exactly what he was on a day and place and time, but it's an overall feeling of this is who he is in the world. This is how he reads. And that was more important even than having his portrait taken in 360 degrees. These images, older images from him younger, are really important because it gives me bone structure. So I can say this is how the face works, this is the bones of the face, and this is what happens to the flesh over time. And I can go back to that, or I can age it forward. Okay, I know how funny that is, a selfie, but I was actually trying to get an idea of proportion of, how big it's, because I don't have measurements on his head, and that changes over time too. So I'm just getting a relative. These are me trying to find his face, trying to do the big blocking in, how best to portray him, all those things. And we knew early on, I was really trying to avoid, these guys know, I was trying to avoid having to do a smile, because it's hard to do and pull off and have it feel not kind of corny. Because of sculpture, I mean, the colors aren't there, etc. It's a little bit difficult to do and keep someone's character. So I was looking for ways to not have to do that. And after meeting the bishop and spending some time, I realized, okay, I have to do this smile. I have to do it. That's just part and parcel of who he is. And also what I was trying to end up with here was that idea of welcoming everyone first to the last. So the last person in, the welcome, the very personal welcome. So this was an early idea. Okay, made a huge leap here because I wasn't thinking of documentation at the time. But from those little ones, once we decided that it was going to be this pose and this welcoming pose. Then from there, I've refined my maquette and I scale it up, build an armature. And this is when the clay is first going on that armature. So he's steel, and this is how the bishop and I spent every day for a very long time.
How many months?
Was it 6 months of actual clay work once we decided on the maquette? Yeah. The bishop was one of my biggest sources on this. He really got it. He was so helpful, and he sent me the robes so that I could study them and use them in this process. He had a further real sensibility about the process. Some things that he wrote to me. Of course, he did not want this. He did not want to be celebrated in this way. But he was very generous in his, like, he understood that the images are important, and he understood sculpture, and he talked to me about intention and a lot of things that spoke to me very, very beautifully, and I kept in my brain as I worked on the piece. What's my intention? Who is this person? And he was always at the front of my brain as I'm working on this piece. So it's my hope it's my intention that comes out in the piece, that I keep those thoughts and who he is in my brain, and that then I just forget that and just work and see if it doesn't come out there. So, and we also started with a much smaller smile, like a little half grin, and I thought, oh, that'll be good. And then it was just about finished, and they're like, he needs a bigger smile. And I'm like, I get it, and you're right, but I started over because it changes everything on the face, it just wrinkles everything differently. And I came back for the opening of the building. Sorry, I got clay all over this stuff, but this for scale. And I was there was a couple of questions I still had about his hands and things, so I was taking little side pictures of him, and just the robes and all that. It seems like a less important part of the sculpture, but every inch of a sculpture is an important part because it's a different view and it needs dealt with. So those robes, to get they're quite static, so to get some movement through the sculpture, we definitely wanted him standing. So create that wind and make those folds of the fabric say something, so it works not only as an image of the bishop, as his kind of a visceral sense of him. Not saying I succeeded 100%, but that is the aim. But to also have a piece that works well as a sculpture and has some visual interest. Now I'm taking you to the foundry, and this is the process of turning something into bronze. This is after already a huge process of mold making, which you'll see the molds, but taking those imprints of the bishop, of the sculpture, is a very delicate craft, and it was done in some 20 pieces, so they all have to fit back together in the end. And the first part of it was getting it to the foundry in Colorado, which involved a sawzall. So if you can imagine working that hard long on the sculpture, and I'm so glad none of these guys were around, because I proceeded to take a sawzall to it and cut it into 4 pieces. Yeah, every step of this process involves craft and a huge skill set. This is the bishop getting patinaed. So this is in the patina room, and it's done with chemicals, depending on the effect you're trying to get, heat and chemicals. You can see the torch in the back. And you'll get one little glimpse of it. It was really cute that the bishop was in the patina room along with Angela Mia de la Vega's work, where it was a little girl jumping with a bunch of butterflies, and she was leaping like this, and he was standing there like that, catching her. It was really cute. Okay, guys, that's I feel such gratitude for having been able to know the bishop like this, to have him in my brain and in my studio all this time. Really grateful for the people I got to work with around here, it was a really affirming experience, and you can't know too many good people like this. Yeah. I appreciate it. Thank you guys very much.